Good morning. This is Charter Moms Chats. I'm Ingrid Cotton. I'm the founder and executive director of San Antonio Charter Moms. And we've been going live at 9 a.m. on Central on weekdays to share learning activities that families can do with their kids at home. And it's part of how we want to help families to keep learning even while a lot of stuff is closed, because we want to stay home and stay safe, but we still want to keep learning, and we want to have some hope and optimism and discovering fun new things. It's 4th of July weekend coming up, and families are going to be cooking at home, and we have some great inspiration from Chef Dave. Dave Terrazas is our guest today. He's the founder of Foodie Classroom is his new project. But you might have seen Chef Dave at the San Antonio Botanical Garden, and he's had a long career, not only as a chef, also as a defense and homeland security analyst, studying food insecurity. Wow, this is great. So, but I mean, he has a really impressive resume, and but his passion is not just cooking, but also education. And so he's presented. So we're going to post on the blog a set of activities that are recipes geared for different ages, right? So there's stuff that preschoolers can do, stuff that middle grades can do, stuff that adults can do, or teens and adults. Honestly, I think every age will enjoy these activities, but I really appreciate how you scaled it for different ages. So we're going to talk to Dave about cooking and education, and then he's also, you can see he's got some foods and prep all set up here. So okay, so Dave, tell us about like what is the kind of the role of chefs in education, and you've got some professional, some volunteer things that you do promoting the role of chefs in education. So
Yeah.
tell us about that.
Well, thank you for having me on today. It's really fun to be here with you. It kind of happened by accident. So I was an analyst for about 17 years, and towards the end of my career, let me say this: I was up in the Boston area, stationed up there in uniform when 9/11 happened, and I kind of went overnight from military analytics to homeland security analytics. And what we were kind of looking at was like civil unrest, social stability, those kinds of things you would normally associate with foreign analysis. But then I started noticing similar patterns in the United States. And one of my last tasks was to kind of look at precursors of civil unrest that breeds terrorism. And we kept seeing the same thing: food insecurity, lack of a voice, hunger. And then I just could not mistake seeing the same sort of patterns that kind of exist domestically as well, and down to the community level, to the neighborhood level. And that was it's a different problem set, but it has many of the same similar issues. So fast forward, I decided to make a change. I actually went on a sabbatical, and I was going to take the last of my GI Bill and go to culinary school, because I grew up cooking with mostly the women in my family, and I just couldn't get out of the kitchen. So I actually have Mexican and Chinese Mexican American roots in my family, and so suffice it to say, we cooked a lot. So fast forward, I decided to take the sabbatical. It was 17 years into that career field. I was kind of tired. I go to school, and I went to Le Cordon Bleu in Orlando because I was living in Florida at the time. And I just was enamored by it. And I thought, I looked down at the whites and I thought, oh, I don't know if this is actually a sabbatical, and it launched a career. And so I started in restaurants, and I actually thought that was the path I was going to take. And then a chance opportunity, I don't know if you call it opportunity, showed up. May of 2013, a big EF5 tornado hit Moore, Oklahoma dead on. And Moore, Oklahoma is just south of Oklahoma City proper. And an all points bulletin went out to a professional organization I'm a member of called the American Culinary Federation. And they asked for help with, feed first responders, the homeless, the affected by the tornado. And I went out there, and I actually got to see points of linkage between the old career field and the new one. Now, the interesting thing about volunteers when they all come in is that they often bring their kids. And no one knows what to do with the kids, because the adults can saw logs in the middle of the road or help rebuild a house. What do you do with the children, right? And so they often were kind of put in on basketball courts or in rooms and kind of left there all day. And I had this mission to feed, and I was running a kitchen, and I kept seeing the kids every day. And it's one of those moments where you're outside yourself, looking at yourself going, what are you doing? But I asked the kids, hey, want to cook in my kitchen? And they said yes, of course. And I had these two little girls. They're still friends of mine to this day. They're in college now, but they were 12 years old at the time. And these two kids actually made, I taught them how to make pizza dough with a large commercial stand mixer. And
Right.
that day they fed 500 first responders, mostly police officers. And I realized, I had an epiphany, and I realized, wait a minute, children are not a liability in this situation.
Right.
When it comes to community resiliency, they do have a role. You just have to be able to work with them. And that
Yeah.
led a new trajectory in the career field, and that's how I ended up doing what I do.
Okay, I'm getting chills. I've been so my son is about to turn 13 on Monday, and
Perfect.
which means we can't like and we can't have his he always has a pool party. We can't have his pool party like we usually do. But it's
Yeah.
getting me thinking about how much a 13-year-old can do. They can
Yeah.
do a lot.
Yes.
And it's good for them to ask them to do stuff. It helps them grow. It gives them confidence.
It
It gives,
does.
right? So like, and that's like that ties in with our overall theme. I'm gonna fly in my little banner here, but like I really encourage families. It's like it's fine to like sometimes you just have to veg out and watch Netflix. That's fine. But you know what? If you sometimes these sabbaticals turn into passions, right? And maybe these little projects you do with your kids, it helps them discover something that activates them, right? And like I love your story about the like 12-year-old girls making, I mean, those commercial stand mixers. Like I wish I had a picture I could fly in, but like those things are huge, right? I mean,
They are.
think of like a KitchenAid stand mixer, but it sits on the floor,
Yeah, but
right?
4 or
And
5 feet tall. Yeah.
right, and like the beater is like bigger than your arm. I mean, those things are a beast. Okay, yeah, that is what a great story.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
like I'm sure it changed their perspective on. I'm sure they felt very useful, to
It
make that
did.
much pizza dough.
It did, because even better, if there was anything better than that, all of a sudden I have the parents of these kids who are curious, hearing about their kids working with Chef Dave come in. So now I have families working together. So by the time I left there, I was there about 48 days. Um, it was amazing. I had families cooking for me together, and they would tell me things
Wow.
like, "We don't even do this at home," but they're cooking together in my kitchen. Uh,
Right.
and so I took a job at a private school after that in Bryan, Texas, right outside College Station. And I was actually just the chef for it was an independent school as opposed to a charter, but
Right.
pretty much, operating along the same lines. And they had a campus garden, and the science faculty were running that. But I was there 2 years. And the first year, the science faculty ran it. The second year, one didn't come back. She moved on, and then the other one went into robotics. So he took over the robotics club. So nobody had the garden. So I went to the headmaster and I said, "Hey, I'm the chef here. Can I have it?" Now, to be honest, one of the things that worked for us is the fact that we didn't have an affordable school lunch program, and because of
Right.
that, you don't have USDA subsidies coming in for the lunch program, but you also have a lot of latitude. And they asked me to be a scratch-based chef, feeding the kids.
Right.
And I was told to compete directly with fast food because it was an open campus and the upperclassmen could
Oh,
go. So they said, "Can you make us something good enough to keep the kids here? Because we think it's safer if they stay." And I said, "Well, I'll do my best." So I asked for this garden, and they said, "Yes, can you just make it look better than it does? It's kind of got weedy." And I said, "Sure, we can do that." So I started doing that, and I started getting piquing the interest of the students that had to walk by it every day. And I actually had students down to like third grade volunteer, just ask, "Hey, Chef Dave, can I help do something?" And it was just so organic and so wonderful. The kids tell the teachers, and all of a sudden the teachers are in my kitchen and in my garden asking, "Hey, why are the kids talking? Let me see what you're doing here." And then they approached me with ideas like, "Hey, do you think we could borrow the garden, or do you think we could borrow the microwave to teach a lesson?" And it was just something that happened naturally. And the more we got to talking, the more we started developing lesson plans together. And it was just a wonderful fit to be able to realize that not only do you have a kitchen for the lunch service, you have alternate areas on the campus to support, I guess, learning in the blended learning environment.
right.
So
Right. They get like another lab, right? All
yeah,
the
mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, and so it just kind of sprung board from there. And then, fast forward a couple of years, I left in 2015, and a year later, I was at the botanical garden being asked to do the same thing. So it was just a wonderful, progression that I just could not have foreseen coming at the beginning of my new career. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
My daughter still talks about the bug menu.
Oh God.
My son was like, he was totally freaked out by that. But actually, my daughter and I, we have a little pouch of cricket powder in the kitchen right now. We're fixing to make
Oh,
brownies.
cricket brownies. Really?
Yeah,
That's
we'll let you
awesome.
know how it goes. Yeah, and
And
then
so for
she
folks who
said,
don't know this, cricket kind of is reminiscent of cocoa in a little bit. So it works very well
mhm,
from a flavor
a little
point.
extra protein. No,
Yeah.
no, I told my daughter that we had to tell everyone that there was cricket powder in the brownies. She said she wants to surprise everybody.
Yeah, you get mixed reactions when you don't do that ahead of time.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I remember the fire ant queso. You could see the fire ants in the queso, right? But
Yeah.
the cricket brownies, you can sneak it in. I don't know.
Oh my goodness.
So we'll see. Yeah, yeah. Well, that is
I have to admit, even I had to wrap my head around that one the first time, and but once I got through that part, I thought, yeah, this actually works pretty well. So
yeah, and it's good for the environment, right?
it is
Smaller carbon footprint per gram of protein from bugs. So
extremely high quality protein. I learned, so yeah.
okay, so there's no bug recipes in today's blog post though. So
No.
yeah, okay.
No.
Okay. Well, Chef Dave, is there more you want to talk about? Let's see. I mean, you talked about how like a classroom garden or like a campus garden can be a learning area. I know there are some charter schools in San Antonio that have really wonderful campus gardens. I think Idea Monterey Park is one.
Idea, yeah.
Founders in Shirts has they have a chicken coop too.
Yeah.
And like they let the kindergartners take out care of the chickens. It's really cute.
Yeah.
And then yeah, like Founders, they let kids into, there's I think an after school club, or there's an extracurricular activity that uses their commercial kitchen for projects. So
yeah, I'm actually starting to see more of the dialogue and the collaboration between faculty members and then chefs, or generally considered staff, at schools. I know, like the last year I was at the Botanical Garden in 2019. I know that there were 16 at the public school level, public schools. There were 16 high schools that had culinary programs, and I think if you add in the private schools, it was 23. And that is just a lot of incredible opportunity for learning in the metro. And I just think it's wonderful to see that kind of partnership, and creating new ways of learning. And what we're really talking about is context. You can teach a lesson dry. And I'm not, this is not a dig on it by any means, because I love Khan Academy. I think it's fantastic. In fact, I was highly inspired by Khan when I started working on the Foodie Classroom concept. I just happen to be a chef who happens to work with teachers or educators. And I thought, hey, let's create some context. Let's use farms, kitchens, gardens, and great spaces to kind of teach that, using stuff we all appreciate and we all eat. We all kind of know what basil is and know what cheese is, we can understand this. And it kind of facilitates learning by sort of removing some of the mental barriers maybe kids might have. That's been my experience thus far.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so is it time to move into some demos?
Sure.
Time to play with food?
I love this part.
Yeah, me too.
So what I wrote for you is basically, as you mentioned, broken into 3 groups. But the very first one that is designed for the preschoolers is really designed for pre-K all the way through grade 12. It's just a manner of how a parent or guardian might, or an educator might communicate with the child. But this is so easy, and this really is the basic primer that sets up everything else I've put together for you. Our amazing taste buds. And I always make the kids stick at your tongue, kids, and they all do that. And I'm like, wow, you all have the same thing. You've got these amazing taste buds all over, and they pick up 5 basic sensory experiences: sweetness, saltiness, sourness, bitterness, and something called umami, which nobody really understands. And even chefs, it's like a meaty quality, I guess. And it's a Japanese word that means savory. And really all it is the amino acid glutamine. It reacts with sodium ions, and it kind of converts and turns into glutamate. And it's something that our bodies actually produce to support our nervous system. Just so happens that we can taste it. And so we find it in cheese, red meats, mushrooms, tomatoes. Where are my tomatoes? Oh my gosh, I just picked tomatoes out of my home garden.
Wow.
They're orange, and they're red, and they're beautiful and purple. And I'm going to use these today. But let me go back to the primer real quick. So what I usually start with when I teach kids is I kind of go over the 5 basic senses. Now, we understand that peaches and lemons smell and taste different. Oh, that's so wonderful, right? And those are the results of organic compounds that number in the thousands, that are in everything that we eat. And they create aromas and flavors. But from the perspective of taste buds, there are 5 basic experiences. There's sweetness, so I have a strawberry. I have a little bit of Himalayan sea salt for saltiness. I have a lemon wedge for sour. For umami, I've got a little Parmesan cheese that I warmed up to room temp, because that's the only way to eat Parmesan cheese. You got to warm it up. And then I have for bitter, and this is something we're not accustomed to in the Western Hemisphere so much, the bitter quality. It's usually more prominent in Eastern cuisine. But cocoa, the alkalinity of
Oh.
cocoa powder is great for understanding, bitterness. And most of us love chocolate. There is bitterness in there. It's usually just tempered by different ingredient combos. So we taste like the fruits. I always make the kids taste them, and get a perspective of what that strawberry is doing for you. If there are allergies, we recommend bananas or apples, as long as it's a sweet fruit. And it's an amazing experience. We might dab our fingers in the salt or the cocoa powder and taste it. We might get the kids to suck on the lemon wedge, and you see all those little pucker faces, and it's hilarious for us. I never get tired of that. The most challenging one is really the bitter. And so we make the kids taste the cocoa by itself. And what they realize is that they don't necessarily like the experience. They recognize the cocoa, but it's kind of hard for them to appreciate. So then we make them contextualize it by taking something else, like a strawberry, dipping it, and then tasting it, and all of a sudden it's a different experience. And that's because we've added some tartness, some from the sour, we've added a little bit of sweetness, and all of a sudden we realize, oh, in combination and in balance, there's a harmony there. It's the same thing for recipes, right? So we always start with that, and it gets kids to sort of understand the basics of cooking. In the Western Hemisphere, we generally like the sweetness, the saltiness, and the sourness together. That usually makes the basis for all of our sauces, as we appreciate them in the West, right? And so I'm going to show you another recipe that springboards off of that. It's real easy for any family to do together. Most of the older kids can actually do this by themselves. And so I'm going to make bruschetta, right? Everybody has at least heard of it, I think. And so it's so simple and easy to do. So I took my tomatoes and I just diced them up. Can you see them?
Ooh, yeah, beautiful colors.
Yes. And so the recipe, I gave you the recipes. Those are going to go online, right?
Yes, that's right.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, so the link will be in the description of the video. So if for the folks who are seeing this from the video, they just click through the description and there you go. You get the blog post, the instructions, and the recipes. Yeah.
Thank you. Awesome. And so I got my tomatoes in there. I've got garlic, and I usually tell the kids just go for it. And so I usually give them a knife. When we teach kids, we've actually had kids down to 6 years old, using a knife that's appropriate for their hands. They do make safety knives. They're made out of plastic, which is great for the little ones. But with enough training, we've noticed that with Guardian, next to them, they can handle it. So we just have them kind of smash the garlic. They all love doing that. I don't know why they love doing that. We have them peel it. And we just kind of explain, the paper is kind of delicate. If you try to peel this, you'll be there all day trying to peel every layer off. So smash it a little bit. And we kind of teach them how to just kind of chop it a little bit or mince it. And so once I get that all chopped and minced, I kind of add it in there to my tomatoes. It's real easy. And then we play with basil. And in my garden, and the wonderful thing about the San Antonio Botanical Garden is that they grow all kinds of cultivars of the same species. So you can get like Thai basil, which has this spade-shaped leaves, very pointy and thin. But then they grow Genovese basil. And this one is one they didn't even grow that I found at one of the local nurseries in San Antonio. These leaves are as big as your head. And it's called Tuscany basil. And it tastes the same way, but it's got a leaf reminiscent of like baby lettuce,
Yeah.
And so it's real easy to teach the fundamentals of cutting what we call the chiffonade cut or ribbon. In French, it basically means ribbon. So we take a couple of leaves and we roll them in the cigar. And that makes it so much easier to control. And we just have kids slice them into ribbons, just like this. And then open them back up, and it makes beautiful, beautiful green, fresh ribbons. And that just looks so much better against that red of the tomato, right? Mm-hmm. And then we have to season it up. And so we just take a little bit of lemon juice, squeeze it in there, a little bit of olive oil, because that holds everything together. A little bit of that Himalayan sea salt. I love sea salt. I'm just going to add that in there like this. You can add pepper. I have a little bit of pepper, but if it's too strong for, the little taste buds, then you don't have to use that. And that's pretty much it. You can add other things to it. What I tend to like to do is after I stir this up, and I don't want to overmix because I don't want to crush my beautiful tomatoes.
Right.
Okay, is I put this on top of a toast point. You can make it kind of like garlic bready style, where you rub a little bit of the garlic clove on the bread before you put it in the oven. A little drizzle of olive oil on it, pop it in the oven. And you get beautiful little toast points like this.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm gonna take my bruschetta or bruschetta and put it right on there, and it's just beautiful.
Mm,
It's
wow.
fresh. It's full of flavor. You get all that sweetness, sourness, saltiness, bitterness, and even umami. Because I'm gonna take my cheese. Where's my cheese? I lost my cheese. Oh, there it is. All
Yeah.
right, and then I'm just gonna kind of shave a little bit off into like little pieces. Put that right on top. And so what I've done is I've actually created a simple recipe that took me what, maybe 2 minutes to make, and I've got all 5 of those basic, senses, taste experiences in there. It smells amazing. It's got all the wonderful organic compounds that create that, and children can also appreciate the fact that we eat with these first, and then maybe this, depending on how far away you are from the food. And it's so easy to do, and it just really teaches kids. Now, if we were scaling up the recipe that I have that I gave you that's listed, we'd be using geometry or sorry, excuse me, algebra to do that. It's a simple algebraic process for scaling up recipes.
Hmm.
If let's just say this was a completely round piece of bread, we could use or we'll just talk about like a cross section of a lemon. Let's cut that in half. I've got a perfect circle. Well, can we teach circumference and area
Hmm.
and diameter going away across using a lemon? We sure could. Could we use a watermelon to make that even better? Absolutely, right? So the
Right.
idea is just using the wonderful resources we have in food to help contextualize lessons that can help kids understand um, these formulas and these concepts that will help them better later in life, and also help them develop a positive relationship with food.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Wow, these projects are so amazing because they bring so many elements together. I think that like laying out the things with the taste, like all the different flavors, then it gets kids thinking like they don't have to just take foods the way it's like, oh well, we always eat it this way. It's like, well, take a step back and think about like what are those different flavors that are added together, and you can combine them in different ways, and that's where the creativity comes from, right? That chefs bring to the process.
Absolutely, because I mean, let's face it. I use tomatoes and savory ingredients like cheese here, right? Well, what would happen if I took that beautiful peach and replaced the tomato with that peach, right? Just omitted the garlic because garlic and peach don't go great together. I mean, what if I just simply diced the peach and I did the very same recipe? I took my basil with that. What if I add a little bit of nutmeg?
Mm,
Could I make a dessert version of the bruschetta? And it's a little bit of creative thought that goes into that. But once you master the basics and you figure out how to do this, you can start changing it up and then doing even more. And that was the feedback I got a lot at the botanical garden. The parents and children would take interest together. They'd go home. They have a wonderful program there called the Chef Program. That's across the city,
right.
and it teaches a healthy relationship with food. Some nutrition fundamentals, some culinary basics. All of a sudden, I have parents and kids coming back to me saying, "Hey, I did your recipe; it was great, but." And I'm waiting for the but. And it's like, but I swapped out the tomatoes for peaches, and we just had a fabulous time doing that. And we put that over grilled chicken, and I thought, wow, that's exactly what we're hoping for. It was an
Yeah.
amazing experience, and we're carrying that forward with Foodie Classroom, of course. But I think I've
Yeah.
seen this
Yeah.
pop up. What I love is that I've seen this pop up across San Antonio. I think IDEA has the right idea, with that. I love their campus gardens. I love the fact that they're asking chefs to come in. Chef Gary Rice is the program director for Art Institutes, is really active in community as well. We're both members of the Texas Chefs Association, which is the state version of the American Culinary Federation. And I'm the education chair right now for the San Antonio chapter. But we all work together. All the educators who have had similar ideas, we all know each other. We all collaborate with each other, and we kind of talk about best practices. And of course, we collaborate and communicate with the faculty as well. And there are just so many fresh ideas constantly coming through, and it's just wonderful to see that across San Antonio. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I think because of your experience, right, as an analyst, you looked at other countries around the world, but then it brought you back home to, like the communities you live in right, and now you live in San Antonio, and
Mhm.
you can see the challenges that food insecurity causes here, and like how much strain it puts on families. Um, and I think part of what you're presenting is like if families can present a garden, right? That or if they create a garden that helps with food security,
Yeah.
and it's getting them eating more fresh foods. And if they know how to prepare fresh foods, It's more economical, right? If they're working with basic ingredients instead of packaged foods, it's
Yeah.
healthier and they get more for their money. And so it improves, the health of the community members, right? Like lower rates of obesity or diabetes, and they're empowered to cook things for themselves. And it brings in like that creativity.
Absolutely. So it's funny little story. I had a chef friend. Well, when I first came back to San Antonio, I went to go do more emergency and disaster relief work in Panama City, Florida, in September. Hurricane Michael hit there almost 2 years ago now,
Right.
and did a lot of damage there. And so I went to run a kitchen out there. I came back in March, um, and when I came back, well, I was one of the many chefs who ended up furloughed because of the pandemic, to be quite honest. That has presented so many challenges, but it has also created some unique opportunities. And the Victory Garden, I guess for lack of a better term for it, is back, right? The home garden.
Right.
And
Right.
and it is amazing. And I had a chef friend who I helped build a backyard garden for, give me a couple of potatoes that he grew in his backyard. And then the same week, my mom did the same thing. I ended up with about a dozen potatoes, and I thought, well, I'll just put them in the ground. They wanted me to eat them, but I thought, I'll go put them in the ground. Let's see what happens. And so far, I've got about 13 new potatoes off of it. And I thought, from a single potato, that's amazing. So, to your point, I love what you can do with that. It is a resource. We are the chefs, in the community. We're all networked.
Yeah.
I have never worked in a city that has been more cooperative or collaborative amongst chefs ever. It is just amazing what we do here. We're a city of gastronomy under the UNESCO Creative Cities program,
That's right.
which is,
Yeah.
and we work together. And so these best practices kind of go into home life as well. And we're trying to figure out, okay, how do you keep your spirits up? Well, gardening is great.
Yeah.
Right. How do we,
Yeah.
create more resources for food? Gardening is great for that, and then you got to figure out what to do with it, because it's great to grow tomatoes. And I have spent a lot of weeks struggling with some of my tomatoes, and I finally got them to harvest. And now it's like, what am I going to do with all of these tomatoes? So, that's where the fun tomato part comes in,
That's right. That's right.
That's what we're
You
doing.
mentioned the you mentioned the International City of Gastronomy designation for San Antonio, and that got me thinking about I think Edible San Antonio magazine was
Yes.
part of that effort, right? And I think you're involved with them, right? You said you guys are going to launch a podcast, and so what's new at Edible SA?
Thank you for asking. So yes, Angela and Freddie Kova are the owners of Edible San Antonio, also editors in chief. And a couple of years ago, we all met through the botanical garden, and we just kind of hit it off really fast, and we became fast friends and dear friends. And about 2 years ago, I asked if I could write an article for the magazine, and of course they obliged and gave me an opportunity, and it turned into a column that was writing about what we were doing at the garden with unique cultivars of species, and how you can get away from the everyday and go swap out green basil for purple basil, and have a whole different aesthetic. And it just led to a great relationship. And then I ended up working for a different company called Mercy Chefs, which is a faith-based group that does emergency and disaster food service. And they let me change the column to one called Food for the Soul. And we talked about the more intangible qualities of food, the relationship to food, nourishment, service, helping each other out when people cook for each other. Well, I'll tell you this, it's my experience doing that work in the emergency and disaster relief domain makes me realize that it is humbling to be in need of a meal after a contingency as it is to find yourself in a position to be able to serve one. And it really connects people at the most basic human level. And I mean, you just drop everything else that just doesn't seem quite as important after that, And those human to human connections are incredible, and they are just so valuable, and I really value those. So I started a column, Food for the Soul, with her blessing, so to speak, and she let me start writing about that. But then we started getting into anthropological and cultural components to that. The cultural richness of San Antonio begs for that, And so now that's what we do. We write about it. But I also said, hey, she was planning to take the magazine digital anyway, so she's doing that. She's in the process of doing that. And I said, hey, we need a podcast. And she said, well, do we really? I mean, we're a magazine. I said, yes, we do. And she says, okay, so talk to me about this. And I said, look at all the wealth of opportunity and resource that we have here. Look at all the talent that is here, all these chefs, these amazing restaurants all over the metro, and their community involved, and it's just amazing. So she says, okay, well, what are we going to do? I said, we're going to interview them. We're going to ask them critical questions about what drives them, what makes them want to be a culinarian in San Antonio, Texas. And it is just absolutely amazing. So we're going to launch that the back end of this month. We already have a list scheduled of different chefs and food service professionals in the metro that we're going to interview, like we're kind of doing right now, and we'll put it up online.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's amazing. San Antonio is an amazing community where people come together and help, and that's what we found. I mean, we've been tapping, guests like you, to write posts for SA Turner Moms, to help solve the problem of families wanting to learn and with their kids at home and stay busy and but be safe at home. And that I think I've had what you're experiencing with the chef community. I'm experiencing with the education community, that there are a lot of people willing to give their time and willing to help create new projects. And so as challenging as the coronavirus situation is, I think it is creating and launching new projects, and
it really is
fun to watch these things grow and what they develop into.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if there is a silver lining to whatever this is that we're dealing with, there are major changes happening in our cultures. There is a huge cultural shift that at some point in the far distant future, anthropologists will look back on and say, wow, they evolved. They were forced to, or you might even say transcend, the negative experiences and then create beautiful things out of it. And I'm all about that as a professional. I'm all about that as a person. I just happen to use the medium of food and, horticulture to do that. But there are amazing opportunities, amazing projects launching all over the place in San Antonio right now, just to make sure people are cared for. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah. And so my advice to families is, like go schedule some grocery delivery, or go set up a grocery pickup, right? Get some strawberries, some sea salt, some lemons, right? They're like, check the website, look for the ingredients, do these projects with your family over the weekend, because it's a holiday weekend and we can't do the things we would normally do for 4th of July, but we can cook together as a family, because we're talking about a lot of big ideas, or like anthropology and culture, but what really brings it down to earth, is our senses, right? That's how we interact with the world, right? And it's when families come together and serve, and when neighbors help each other, right? Like my neighbor who had too many tomatoes, and she dropped some off for me, and I had basil.
Yeah. So what did you make with it? I want to know.
Oh, caprese salad. In fact, we've had like caprese salad like 4 out of the last 7 nights.
So you're at it now, aren't you?
Yeah, we just love it. It's when tomatoes are at their peak, and the basil just keeps growing. It grows faster than we can cut it. So
I love that. So you're doing something right in the backyard or wherever you have your basil.
Yeah, we have the western side of our house is this patio that's just concrete, and it just kind of bakes. But the kids water it constantly, so it's a container garden with herbs, and the kids, it's their job. They water it. It's good for them. They're responsible for it. And then my daughter was asking me, like, so we're gonna go to Shades of Green Nursery and pick up some more plants to expand.
That's where I found it.
That place is the best. Yeah. So Shades of Green Nursery. It's on Sunset, right? It's kind of near the airport. Yep. Yeah. But there are lots of great nurseries across San Antonio. That's just my favorite nursery.
Sure. So. I hit them all. Believe me. I make a run. Just kind of drive around the city. They all have different things, and it's great. Different times of the year. You just never know what you're going to find.
Yeah. That's discovery. Okay. Well, I hope, Dave, I think you've brought a great sense of like optimism. I think families will have like a project that they can work on, and they can enjoy this great food, and they can make memories together. And it's in all these little kitchens, this is what makes San Antonio a city of gastronomy, right? It's like it's not just the commercial kitchens, but it's also the schools and the gardens and the families cooking at home, right? Raising our kids to eat healthy. And
I'm glad you said that last bit, because memories, those memories are the drivers that inspired me to become a chef later in life. It's those memories I drew back on when I was a kid, and I had family members, standing over me, teaching me how to do something that I never let go of. And I'm telling you, it comes back in ways that will create amazing experiences later for not just the person, but everybody they serve. So
yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. This is for a blog post and a live stream about recipes. This got very deep. This got very
Oh, it did.
It did, it did. Yeah. Thank you so much, Chef Dave. Is there any kind of closing thoughts you wanna send people out with, like how to celebrate this weekend or how to make good memories with your family?
I think you hit the nail on the head. Remember that kids are amazing beings. They are so capable. They just need someone to believe in them and guide them through it. There's really nothing that I've really prepared in my kitchen that I don't think a kid could do. And like you mentioned, it's going to create those lasting memories that will hopefully be passed on, because that's how we got all these great recipes in San Antonio that we make now. I'm actually
Mhm.
making mullet in the kitchen right now. Yeah, if you can believe that. And I mean, how old is that? The original recipe.
Yeah.
So, and I just want to express gratitude. Thank you very much for having me on today. It's been fun to see you again and to talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, yeah. I look forward to continue to work with you, Chef Dave. Thank you so much.
Likewise, thank you.
Okay.